Picture this. Deep underground in a national lab, rows of supercomputers glow in blue light, cooling fans roaring like jet engines. On a secure screen, a countdown hits zero, and a new training run begins on a model no one outside the government will ever see or touch. This is not a movie trailer. This is the kind of scene the White House now has in mind for something they are calling the Genesis mission, a Manhattan project for AI built for the 21st century. The United States has just made its AI moonshot official. Genesis is a coordinated national effort to fuse federal science assets, commercial labs, and universities into one integrated AI backbone for the country. Think of it as Washington stepping in as the command center over a sprawling ecosystem of models, chips, and data. But here is the part nobody expected. This is not about building a single chatbot. It is about rewiring how America does science, defense, and even work itself. So why should you care about another grand government program with a dramatic name? Because Genesis changes the rules of the AI race. Until now, companies like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic sprinted independently, dropping models like GPT 5.1 or Gemini 3 Pro in what insiders call drop mode. Genesis says stop thinking about product launches and start thinking about infrastructure, about who controls the data, the compute, and the mission. In a minute, you will see why that subtle shift could decide who gets hired, who gets automated, and who gets left behind. At its core, Genesis is a bold data play. Federal agencies quietly hold what might be the largest scientific data repository on Earth, from energy and climate to health, defense, and space. Right now, those datasets sit in fragmented silos, locked in legacy formats and obscure portals. Genesis aims to weld them into a single AI training and inference platform where models can learn not just from web text, but from decades of carefully measured reality. And here's the twist. That kind of data is exactly what private labs cannot buy, license, or scrape. To understand the scale, zoom in on the national labs, the same system that built the original Manhattan Project. Places like Oak Ridge, Argonne, and Lawrence Livermore already run some of the fastest supercomputers on the planet, machines measured in exaflops, not gigabytes. Until now, they mostly simulated physics and climate. Genesis points that firepower straight at frontier AI workloads, sitting those machines right next to petabytes of satellite imagery, genomics, fusion experiments, and energy grid telemetry that never touch the public internet. This is not the open benchmark world of leaderboards. It is a closed loop engine for national optimization. That closed loop lets Genesis flip the objective function. Private labs ultimately answer to quarterly earnings and user growth. Genesis answers to national interest with explicit mandates around security, science, and energy. A model that never ships an API but cuts nuclear simulation time by 90% or finds a new battery chemistry suddenly outranks a chatbot that writes better emails. This changes who gets funded, which problems get solved first, and yes, which skills become valuable in your career. But Genesis is not a single mega model with a catchy name. It is an ecosystem. Imagine domain-specific models for climate, biology, defense, and energy, all orchestrated through secure data fabrics and workflow engines wired directly into government agencies and defense contractors. Each time one piece improves, the gains ripple across the whole stack, compounding in ways no isolated lab can match. In a moment, we will look at the secret weapon that makes this ecosystem so powerful. The data treasure trove you already paid for with your taxes. Start with health. The National Institutes of Health holds petabyte-scale genomic archives like the Sequence Read Archive, covering millions of human and microbial genomes. Wired into Genesis, that becomes fuel for foundation models that can infer protein structures, simulate drug interactions, and propose clinical trial designs in hours instead of years. Then add climate. NOAA holds tens of petabytes of satellite imagery, radar sweeps, and ocean buoy readings. Train multimodal models directly on that fire hose, and you get systems that can forecast extreme weather and stress test infrastructure policy with frightening precision. Then there is the Department of Energy. Its labs generate torrents of particle physics and materials data from facilities like Fermilab and SLAC, billions of collision events and sensor traces that are perfect for scientific AI. Private companies mostly train on web data plus a few licensed corpora. Genesis can layer that baseline with government-only datasets that never touch the open internet. But here's the catch no one talks about. Turning this horde into a usable platform means solving brutal problems in data standardization, privacy, and security all at once. Agencies store information in incompatible formats with sparse metadata and wildly different privacy rules. Genesis has to standardize schemas, build secure cross-agency data fabrics, enforce differential privacy, and co-locate that data with massive GPU and TPU clusters. If they pull it off, the payoff is enormous. A global first engine of discovery that can answer questions across climate, health, and energy in a unified way. If they fail, all that data stays a maze of siloed archives. And in a world where rivals are racing, that failure would not just be inefficient, it would be dangerous. Because make no mistake, Genesis is also about geopolitics. Senior officials openly describe it as a Manhattan Project for AI launched under pressure from Beijing and Brussels. China is pouring tens of billions into state-guided AI clusters tied to surveillance, cyber operations, and industrial planning. The European Union is trying to hard-code its values into the stack through the EU AI Act. The American bet is simple. Whoever controls the most capable models, the fastest training pipelines, and the deepest data wins the century. Talk of AI supremacy sounds abstract until you follow the capabilities. AI-optimized logistics shrink military deployment timelines from weeks to days. Synthetic biology models accelerate both pathogen design and countermeasure discovery. Autonomous systems shift deterrence calculations in the South China Sea, the Baltic, and low Earth orbit. Whoever leads in AI sets standards, controls choke points, and shapes alliances. This is no longer just a market story. It is a 21st century balance of power contest fought with code, silicon, and data centers instead of tanks. To build this machine, Washington needs a partner it once distrusted: Silicon Valley. Genesis turns Uncle Sam into a kind of co-founder, offering data, compute contracts, and regulatory cover in exchange for cutting-edge models and engineering talent. For labs like OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and Meta, this is a guaranteed mega customer with multi-year deals that could rival the biggest cloud contracts in history. And here is the strategic twist. Companies that help design Genesis safety and auditing standards effectively help write the rulebook everyone else must follow. On paper, the synergies look obvious. Government brings classified and proprietary datasets, access to export-controlled chips, and long-horizon mission focus. Industry brings state-of-the-art foundation models, tooling stacks like Vertex AI, Azure AI, and Bedrock, plus scarce alignment and systems engineers. Vendors get a single integration point into dozens of agencies instead of 30 separate pilots. But beneath the surface, there is a quieter question. When you fuse state power with a handful of platforms, who ends up owning the resulting capabilities? The public or a few private giants? Now zoom in on what Genesis could do for science. In drug discovery, an integrated stack can ingest every NIH trial, FDA filing, genomic dataset, and adverse event report, then run billions of in silico experiments before a single mouse is dosed. Instead of guessing which molecule to test, models pre-rank candidates for safety, efficacy, and manufacturability, potentially cutting years and hundreds of millions from development. In climate, hybrid AI physics models could turn petabytes of data into neighborhood-level flood maps, wildfire forecasts, and grid stress predictions that update near real time. Fusion research and materials science get the same treatment. Tokamaks and laser facilities generate terabytes of data per shot. AI controllers can learn in simulation how to stabilize plasma and predict disruptions before they happen. Generative models can explore millions of candidate alloys or battery materials in software, scoring them for strength, heat resistance, or conductivity long before anyone steps into a lab. For you, that translates into faster breakthroughs in clean energy, cheaper electronics, and medical treatments arriving years earlier than today's timelines. The science fiction part is not the tech. It is how quickly it might hit the real world. All of this sounds like progress, but there is an alignment question almost no one is asking. When you build a national-scale AI engine optimized for speed and capability, how do you make sure it stays aligned not just with safety checklists, but with democratic values? Who audits models that live entirely inside classified environments? How do you prevent a tool built for defense from drifting into mass surveillance or automated repression in the wrong hands? The stakes are not abstract. They are about the rules you and your kids will have to live under. Genesis will also reshape everyday work long before it reshapes geopolitics. Models trained on federal procurement, logistics, and healthcare workflows will leak back into commercial tools that schedule freight, manage hospitals, and run factories. Jobs that depend on pattern recognition, paperwork, and coordination will be the first to feel the pressure. At the same time, entirely new roles will appear around data stewardship, model oversight, and mission-driven AI engineering. The question is not whether your world will be remade by Genesis, but whether you will be ready when it happens. So where does this leave you? Sitting far from Oak Ridge or the West Wing? Over the next decade, the Genesis mission will quietly influence what medicines get approved, how your city prepares for floods and fires, what energy powers your home, and which careers grow or vanish. It is a Manhattan project without the single flash in the desert, a slow detonation of capability spreading through code and contracts. If you want to understand the real future of AI, you cannot just watch the next chatbot demo. You have to watch Genesis. If you want a part 2 where we dig into how Genesis could change specific jobs, from software engineering to medicine to national security careers, tell me in the comments. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next deep dive into the hidden infrastructure of AI power. And share this with someone who still thinks the AI race is just about who has the best chatbot, because that story is already out of date. The real game just moved into overdrive.